Okay, let's see if the audio is working correctly. And it appears to be correct this time, hopefully. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am doing this video to give people a kind of an update on some of the things that I've been thinking and some of the positions I find myself in right now that are making my life very difficult, and I'm sure all of your lives at least a bit of a challenge. And I don't think the things are unrelated. So, to give you just the quickest backstory that I can, I was working full time when all of this stuff went down with COVID, and I have been following the story since very early days, including all the what appears to be now propaganda coming out of the CCP early on, with the people falling over dead in the streets and uncontrollably dropping on their faces to the concrete. Uh, we have seen none of that I'm aware of anywhere else but the CCP. Yet it was spread all over social media. Also, they did some stuff where they had these trucks they showed driving through the city streets, spraying some kind of chemical. It was clearly visible clouds of whatever materials going into the air, supposedly to kill this new virus. The one that not long after that, the WHO came out and said, "Hey, no need to close your doors, no need to shut borders. This virus is not airborne, from what we can tell, and there is no evidence of human-to-human transmission." So on one side, we saw the CCP promoting all of this stuff through social media with these leaks of videos that came out. And on the other hand, we saw the WHO, which we know, or anyone would know if they looked into the funding of the WHO, who really has the greatest say as far as the direction of that particular organization goes. There's two people at the top. One used to be the United States, as they were the primary funder. And when Trump pulled the money from there, it became China and Gavi, which is Bill Gates' organization. So, CCP, when I say China, just please keep in mind I mean the CCP. I do not mean the Chinese people. I would never disparage the Chinese people. Many people that I've met of Chinese origin are fantastic people. And I would like to separate the ideas of a system that exists in China and comes out of China and motivates most of the actions of the Communist Chinese Party, or the Chinese Communist Party, either way, motivates the actions of those people to do what they do. And that is a different thing altogether from actual people. So I just wanted to be sure that I made that distinction. As far as what they would want the WHO to do, it seems that right from the beginning, when China had this outbreak in Wuhan, and they were telling everybody what was going on, and there was, again, the fantastical images coming out of Wuhan, they were also bragging about their ability to shut down all of society like that. So what they did was they basically explained to everybody, hey, isn't it wonderful? We have this top-down, not authoritarian, not totalitarian, but just like a hybrid capitalist version of what happens in the regular world, at least so we're told, on this side of the pond, here in North America at least, and in the Western world in general. But the fact is that they were playing up the fact China, or basically the CCP, was able to mobilize all these tons of people to get together to build these hospitals, you will remember, that were required, and they did it in a week, and everybody was blown away. And I remember saying at the time, that is amazing. They built a hospital in that amount of time. Were the blueprints just sitting around? How exactly do you build a hospital with all new requirements required for social distancing and all the things that we were being told that we had to engage in order to protect the general public, or should we say the hospital staff, from infection, because this thing was so dangerous and yet it wasn't airborne, says the WHO. So again, there's some mixed messaging coming out of there, but the real point of that messaging was, hey, isn't the CCP great? Because they can mobilize all their citizens, and it doesn't matter what they were doing. If they were needed, the CCP could round them up, put them on planes, and send them all to the area that they were needed the most. And with this draconian lockdown, with locking people into their buildings and violating their rights as free human beings. Isn't it wonderful that we can stop this thing in its tracks? And I believe that's what it was intended to do. It was intended to give the impression that what is wrong with the world and the current system that we live under is that it's not enough top-down authoritarian control. Which, if you've ever paid any attention to the kind of stuff that comes out of the UN, it's always the same solution to every single problem, whether it be world hunger, whether it be disease management, whether it be what do we do about the climate. These should all sound familiar to you. The biggest solution that they always come up with is, hey, give all this power to the UN or the WHO or the IPCC or the WEF, which is now telling us how the world is going to exist financially moving forward from here. All of these people have their various ideas, but they basically are born out of a giant bureaucratic machine that is supported by the UN and all these various countries and all the corporate elements and influences that make people go in, decide how they want to move things going forward. All those people lend their best and their brightest and their educational materials and their planning committees about what to do about every single little thing that needs to happen in human life. It goes to the UN, and the UN decides how everything is going to be moving forward. And so they've told us for years what to do about climate change. What we need is the Paris Accord, or we need some kind of way to bring down emissions. And even though it seems unclear how they explain that it's absolutely necessary to do these things that they say that they need to do, there's an air of importance. There's an air of authority that comes out of the UN, and in that case specifically the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change. And those people get together and they tell us what's going on. They compile all the information from all the different sources, from all the different countries, from all the different organizations and NGOs. They compile that information, and it's sort of like a resource depot where all of that information goes, and they sort it out and they provide it back to you in a easy to consume little package that tells you that really the most important thing that ever has to happen is you need to listen to people that are in positions of authority that need to tell you how your life is going to be moving forward from here. They've been planning about all that stuff for years. It's never, ever, since the inception of the UN, been a different way. The UN has always been about resolving world conflict, even from its founding, and it got together, built a banking system around these ideas of resolving conflict and keeping people from going to war. And since their inception, well, they have not been exactly the best at what they claim they want to do. Their track records, let's say it's lacking in any actual real successes. But, you know, they sure do have a good PR team. And what do we know about corporations? Well, we know that they build an image and they have a PR team that maintains that image. And even though sometimes they do some things that may seem less than desirable or a little bit iffy or questionable, or, you know, maybe they do a cost-benefit analysis and they decide that fixing a certain part in a car is not worth that much. Well, it's going to cost a fortune for them to do it, but they also determine how much it's going to cost in the inevitable backlash of how many lawsuits it's going to generate. So I think most of us are familiar with this idea of cost-benefit analysis. Now, cost-benefit analysis is something that comes out of the corporate world, and yes, out of capitalism, but there is a serious distinction to be made between what capitalism is and what crony capitalism is. And I think a lot of people do not understand what that distinction is, but I will give you a hint. Crony capitalism is where government works in alignment with the needs of the corporation, okay, in order to advance the priorities and the goals of that corporation, okay? So when you get so big, you can actually go to the regulatory agencies that have been developed in order to keep you from getting out of control, and you get a situation that's called regulatory capture, where there becomes this revolving door scenario where we've all seen that people that work in finance of major world banking institutions also work at the heads of the businesses and the banks that help to support that infrastructure. And the same thing is to be true for pharmaceutical companies and the drugs that they produce and they promote, and the government agencies that are regulating the safety and or protocols and uses that surround those particular items. So this is corporate malfeasance. It is called crony capitalism, and it is not capitalism. Capitalism is the idea that everyone gets a fair shake, and they get to bear the fruits of their efforts for their own purposes. They get to be responsible, well-developed human beings that actually do something with their lives, and they don't waste all their time waiting for someone else to help them out. Am I claiming that some people don't have crappier starting situations than other people? No, I totally understand that. And everything should be done to try to bring people into the fold of successful and capable people that can engage in the world as it exists with trade with other people. So you get paid for your efforts. That money is just a medium that you trade with other people in order to get things that you want that they make. It's a way to exchange services, nothing more. It actually has nothing more to do with the intentions of the system than the people that control those particular dollars. So when they get so big and so strong, they decide that it is their imperatives that should be guiding society. That's when they start creating foundations. That's when they start supporting causes they believe would be beneficial for them and their particular viewpoint of life. And that's when they start moving in and out of the revolving door between regulators and actual business leaders. And so, what is the UN? The UN is the culmination of all of that work of corporate entities and their what their strategy is for the future and how they're going to handle things. But they also work at the behest of the stakeholders. That would be the owners that own those corporations. And those corporations owners believe they know what the best way is forward for all of mankind. And here's the deal, okay? Now people look for someone else to help them whenever they're having trouble in their lives. And so here I am asking you, if you're watching this long, to help me with the trouble that I'm having in my life. Because what I want to shine a light on is not the fact that this is happening, but I do want to shine a light on the fact that it's happening. But I don't want to shine a light on the fact that specifically this is happening. I want to shine a light on the fact that we believe that what's happening right now has to do with a pandemic or COVID-19 or something out of the ordinary that has happened, that is extraordinary and has these circumstances and externalities that are attached to it that actually make it somehow different than any other disease that has come through society before. It's not true. There's very little evidence that it's true. I intend to put up as much as I can as far as some of the writing that I've been doing since the beginning of this thing, which again is why I find myself here. I will get back to that. But I intend to put together as many videos as I can detailing just exactly what I'm talking about. And I want to point out something really important here. I'm not putting the blame on anyone. If anyone is to be held responsible for what's happening right now, it is us. We are all brothers and sisters in this same world community, and we are all going to feel the consequences of what is actually being unrolled right now on top of all of us. And it's a system, a new system to replace the old system of voluntary exchange through capitalism. And now we're going to have what's called stakeholder capitalism, which basically means that from now on, from cradle to grave, your life and all of your experiences and all the things that you do are going to be recorded. So there is no second chances. There is no there is no mulligans in this particular scenario of life. In fact, everything you do makes you either advance up the corporate ladder or decline down the corporate slide. And we're all part of the corporation. This is a worldwide corporation that is currently being instituted. And we're all just sitting back and watching it happen like it's totally inevitable. I would like you to know right now, because this is important, it is not inevitable. We do not have to accept this control from the people that are telling us we do. They are people with a plan, and it's a good one, and it's working pretty well. And you know what? I don't even hold them responsible for being necessarily nefarious or malevolent with what their actions are. I believe them to be a consequence of the times, and they see a lot of the problems that are happening in the world as a consequence of historical or other things. Really, it's just PR. It's just public relations. They're crafting a narrative that works for them. So everything they do moving forward from here, by the way, AI was coming. We all knew AI was coming. We knew it. We've known it for years. We've known about technological unemployment. And the problem is that we haven't really addressed it. We haven't talked about it. The most I've seen it talked about was Andrew Yang last year in the Democratic primaries. And Andrew Yang had a really good point, okay? We need to look about the externalities of the way that we live our lives. The problem is that we human beings need to be able to engage in that process. We are currently being disenfranchised in a way that has never happened ever before in the history of humanity, and that should be the scary part. So I'm going to ask for your help. That's my point.